So it is Thursday, February 24th, 2022, and we are live. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We're also broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF and our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. All right, so I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered again on Friday. I was on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, and I'm going to share a segment from Roland Martin Unfiltered, where we dealt with the Black Farmers Fear Foreclosure as debt relief remains frozen. And we talked to John Boyd, president of the Black Farmers Association. But today in court, the former officers, three former officers, Minneapolis police officers who were involved in the killing of George Floyd, they were convicted in federal court today on federal civil rights charges. Okay. And we're going to give you an update on what happened there. At least one of them seemed surprised that they were convicted. The former officers, J. Alexander Kung, Thomas Lane, and Tu Tao were charged with depriving George Floyd of his civil rights while acting under government authority. Okay, depriving George Floyd of his civil rights while acting under government authority. And this was a federal trial. Okay, so they were found guilty. So we're going to discuss that. We'll also talk about the African-American farmers and Black Farmers Fear Foreclosure as debt relief remains frozen. Okay, the $4 billion in debt relief that remains frozen because you had white farmers who were jealous, who filed lawsuits to saying that they're being discriminated against because they can't take advantage of the debt forgiveness. They can't take advantage of the $4 billion in debt forgiveness because it's for historical discrimination against African-American farmers, Latino farmers, Native American farmers, etc. All right. Now, white farmers didn't say anything when they got $26 billion in debt relief in 2020 from the Trump administration. They got almost $26 billion, and African-American farmers only got $26 million. White farmers got $26 billion in debt forgiveness. Hold on. White farmers got $26 billion in debt forgiveness. African-American farmers only got $26 million. Okay, but white farmers didn't cry out discrimination or things like this on behalf of African-American farmers. All right, so we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll give you a brief update on what's going on with Russia invading the Ukraine as well. And we see that has escalated also over the past couple of days. So we'll talk about that on today's show. This weekend, I'm teaching my online classes, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, and from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for those classes right now. As soon as you register, there's archive content that you can start watching. You can watch the class we just did this past weekend. Next class is Saturday, February 26th. This is a 10-week online class that I teach in Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So this class is on sale, $80, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. And then you could use this also with your children. It's very visual. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. You can use this with your children. If you've taken any of my classes before, email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. and you'll get a 50% discount on the classes. Okay. And then on Sundays, I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Both of these classes are 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So we posted the information here on the thread of our broadcast. You can also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. Let's jump into this first story because we're coming up on a break. So today we'll look at this piece here from NBC News and also one from the Washington Post. So 3 officers found guilty on federal charges in George Floyd's killing. The former officers, J. Alexander Kung, Thomas Lane, and Tu Tao were charged with depriving George Floyd of his civil rights while acting under government authority. Now, 3 former Minneapolis police officers have been found guilty of violating the civil rights of George Floyd, which are federal charges. And a black man whose death at the hands of police in 2020 spurred protests against systemic racism around the world. Now, the former officers all were convicted of depriving George Floyd of his civil rights while acting under government authority when they failed to give him medical aid. Kung and Tao additionally were convicted of not intervening to stop their fellow officer, Derek Chauvin, from using excessive force. Okay. Kung and Tao additionally were convicted of not intervening to stop Derek Chauvin from using excessive force. They had pleaded not guilty. Now, the 3 officers, Tao, Kung, and Lane, each face up to life in prison, although such a severe punishment is unlikely. Now, they have not been sentenced yet. They were convicted today. They have not been sentenced yet. And there's also another trial coming up in June also. Now, the men are scheduled for a trial in June 2022 on state charges of aiding and abetting murder and manslaughter. Now, the Philonise Floyd, George Floyd's brother, said at a news conference today, he said, "This is not accountability. It can never be justice because I can never get George back. And no matter how many times that I pray at night and think about my brother 24/7, it's still going to be hard." Now, the jury began deliberating on Wednesday, July 23rd, after a month-long trial. In closing arguments, prosecutors said the defendants had front row seats to George Floyd's murder and chose to do nothing to help him, while Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep right here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Stand by. Okay. Who needs to register for the online classes for this weekend, for Saturday and Sunday? Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Stand by. As we get ready for this next segment, stand by. Back from breaking 2 minutes. Breaking 1 minute. Stand by.
On the African History Network show, we deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. If you've been injured in
Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, February 24th, 2022, and we are live. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about the guilty verdict that took place today in federal court for the three police officers who were involved in the killing of George Floyd, and they were found guilty on federal civil rights charges violating George Floyd's civil rights. Okay, so we're going to go to clip one here. Shakita, just a second here. I'm about to send this to you. Okay. Okay, so cue up clip one from NBC News. We're going to go to that. All right, I want to go back to this article from NBC News. Then we're going to look at one also from the Washington Post. Washington Post had a good article dealing with the guilty verdict today as well. So if we go back over to this just a second, calling numbers 313-778-7600. Also 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So if we go back over to this one here from NBC News. Okay, so in closing arguments, prosecutors said the defendants had front row seats to George Floyd's murder and chose to do nothing to help him while Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for 9.5 minutes. All right. Now, Assistant U.S. Attorney Amanda Sertich said Tuesday said Tuesday they chose not to aid George Floyd. They chose not to aid George Floyd as the window into which Mr. Floyd's life could have been saved slammed shut. Okay, so if we look at this one here, and we're going to clip one in just a minute here. Defense attorneys argue that the men did not receive adequate training and that they relied on Derek Chauvin, who was the training officer, as the most experienced officer on the scene. These officers tried to devise an excuse that could let them wash the blood from their hands, but following these verdicts, George's blood will forever stain them, said Attorney Benjamin Crump, and other attorneys representing George Floyd's family. They said this in a statement after the verdict was announced. Today's guilty verdicts should serve as the guiding example of why police departments across America should expand and prioritize instruction on an officer's duty to intervene and recognize when a fellow officer is using excessive force. Today's guilty verdicts should serve as the guiding example of why police departments across America should expand and prioritize instruction on an officer's duty to intervene and recognize when a fellow officer is using excessive force. All right, now I want to go to clip one. This is from NBC News, and this is minutes after the guilty verdict was read. Let's go to clip one, please, Shakita.
Minnesota, finding 3 former Minneapolis police officers guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights. This is a trial we have been watching. Prosecutors have said that Alexander King, Thomas Lane, and Tu Tao, who were all at the scene when former officer Derek Chauvin pressed his knee into Floyd's neck, killing him, chose to do nothing. The defense had said the officers were not trained properly to intervene, claimed they did try to help. I want to bring in now, who is live in St. Paul, Shaq Brewster, here first for NBC News. Shaq, I know this has just all developed. This verdict was just read out. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, Hallie, this jury took about 13 hours over the course of 2 days to reach this unanimous verdict. You read it. They are guilty. The 3 former officers who were at the scene as Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, they were found guilty of deprivation of rights under the color of law. These are federal charges, Hallie, and it's that weird term that you hear, deprivation of rights under the color of law. What prosecutors are essentially arguing is that for all 3 of the officers, they deprived George Floyd of his civil rights by not providing medical aid as he was clearly lying on the ground in need of that medical attention. For 2 of the officers, Tu Tao and Alexander King, they faced that additional charge and have now been convicted of that additional charge of failing to intervene as Derek Chauvin was using that excessive force. That just happening in the past couple of minutes. The jury also unanimously saying that the officers' inaction here led to George Floyd's death. That becomes important in sentencing. Now, how much time these officers are now facing in prison for this conviction? Well, that's not specifically clear at this point. Federal prosecutors say there's a complicated formula that goes into this, but they estimate they'll be facing about 2 to 4 years in prison for this. It's important to note, Hallie, that all 3 of these former officers also are facing state charges for aiding and abetting the murder of George Floyd. So they're not out of the clear just yet. But the big news right now is that a jury of 8 women and 4 men have now convicted all 3 officers who were at the scene as George Floyd was murdered, have convicted them of depriving George Floyd of his civil rights.
I think that second trial set to start in June. Shaq, themes of the case, big picture here, seem to revolve around whether these defendants, now convicted, felt they could speak up to authority and essentially pull in, the bad behavior of colleagues.
That's exactly right. And if you remember that original video, as George Floyd was being murdered, there was Tu Tao, who was the officer who was trying to control the crowd. He testified. All three of these officers testified in their own defense. Tu Tao testifying that he was trying to focus his attention on the crowd and wasn't aware of what was happening behind the car, wasn't aware of the medical aid that George Floyd needed. There was Alexander King, who was standing next or kneeling next to Derek Chauvin. He was arguing that Chauvin was his training officer, and he didn't know how, or he trusted Chauvin and didn't realize, he says, that his duty was to intervene. He says, he testified on the stand that Minneapolis Police Department failed him and didn't tell him exactly how to intervene. He was actually at Floyd's legs. And then there was Thomas Lane, and he was one who, if you watch that video or remember the initial trial, he suggested to Chauvin, should we roll him over? And Chauvin said no. Well, he was just facing that one charge of not providing that medical aid. He was saying that he didn't realize how bad George Floyd was until they rolled him over. Clearly, the jury did not believe those accounts, siding with the prosecutors here, who argued that they should have known, that the bystanders knew, and that they failed to honor George Floyd's civil rights by not acting in this situation.
Okay, so that's from NBC News. That's from that's Shaquille Brewster, who's on the scene there at the federal court in Minneapolis. So these three officers found guilty. They haven't been sentenced yet. We'll see what happens with sentencing. And also state charges are coming up as well. Read the article. There's another trial that's coming up in June on state charges, as I said previously. Shakita, I just sent you another clip. We're going to that next on the Black News Channel. Read this article here from the Washington Post. Former Minneapolis officers found guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights. Washington Post has a really good piece on this. U.S. District Judge, so in the article here, we're looking at third paragraph. U.S. District Judge, I think maybe they've updated this since I printed it. Yeah, they updated it a few minutes after I printed this article. U.S. District Judge Paul Magnuson, who presided over the case, did not order the officers to be taken into custody, citing a separate trial scheduled for June 2022 on state charges of aiding and abetting murder and manslaughter in George Floyd's death as well. So they have to face another trial, a state trial regarding George Floyd's murder as well. Now, U.S. District Judge Paul Magnuson said he would announce sentencing in the civil rights case. This was a federal civil rights case. He would announce sentencing in the civil rights case at a later date. The courtroom was silent as Judge Magnuson read the guilty verdicts for each former officer. A limited number of friends and family of the former officers had sat in the socially distanced courtroom during the proceedings, but on Wednesday, just one woman sat behind the defense tables. Tao and Kung showed no visible reaction as they were found guilty. Thomas Lane shook his head and appeared to toss something on the table in reaction to the decision, causing a noise that echoed across the courtroom. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break, and I want to go briefly to, when we come back, Dieter Walde talked about this on the Black News Channel tonight. So on making the case. So I want to share a segment of that. Then we'll talk about the Black farmers. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Tuesday as a panelist. Normally I'm on Fridays. I'll be back on Friday, but I was on Tuesday. We talked to John Boyd about the plight of the Black farmers and Black farmers fear foreclosure as debt relief remains frozen. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Stand by, everybody. Back from break in 4 minutes. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Okay, how's everybody doing? Follow us here on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Who still needs to register for the online classes I teach on the weekend? I'm teaching classes Saturday, February 26th, Sunday, February 27th. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Stand by. Stand by. We'll post a link here so you can register for the classes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, February 24th, 2022, and we are live. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about the guilty verdict that took place today in federal court. 3 officers found guilty on federal charges in George Floyd's killing. Okay, they were found guilty on federal civil rights charges. The 3 officers, and Kung and Tao were also found guilty on failing to intervene with Derek Chauvin. Okay, the jury found that the actions of all 3 men caused George Floyd's death. All right, so I want to go to this clip here quickly. Yodita Walde on the Black News Channel talked about this today. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
We're going to head to Minnesota, where a federal jury has found former Minneapolis police officers Tao, J. Alexander King, and Thomas Lane guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights. The 3 officers were found guilty of depriving Floyd of his civil rights by showing deliberate indifference to his medical needs, as Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd for more than 9 minutes back in May of 2020. The jury also found King and Tao guilty for failing to intervene to stop Chauvin from using excessive force. Tao, King, and Lane each face up to life in prison. Tonight, I've got my legal experts here to help unpack all of this. Former prosecutor Leslie Ricard Chambers and former criminal defense attorney Lauren Prater. Glad to have you both on. Listen, I just want to get reaction from the both of you on this verdict. Is it what you expected, and do you agree with each of the verdicts returned? Leslie, to you first.
course, I agree with the verdict that was returned guilty. I mean, this is a long time coming, and this is exactly what we need to see from the Department of Justice right now in this social justice climate, with all of the cases that are going on across the country, including the Ahmaud Arbery case. We need to see a DOJ that is setting the precedent that these types of cases, these types of crimes from folks who are law enforcement officials, folks who want to be law enforcement officials, that this weighted. And so it is great to see that this case was tried and that all three of these defendants were found guilty as charged. And it's especially icing on the cake to know that two of the officers were found guilty of additional charges.
Lauren, what about you? Your reaction? I mean, these verdicts came in just under 2 days. Was it long enough for three individuals who had three different roles that they played that day?
You know, the length of time isn't really what's getting me. It's the ultimate verdict. Today was a wonderful day on this beautiful February and Black History Month. This was something that has been long awaited. Accountability is something that is extremely necessary in this justice system, and it's something that, you know, we as Black people don't get to see very frequently. So today was certainly a victory. Today was a day that we can celebrate that the justice system works. There is a value to Black lives. You cannot just sit back and watch while someone is treated like an animal. So ultimately the verdict came in. I'm thrilled with the verdict. I'm not surprised by the verdict. And I'm hoping that this sets the precedent for, juries down the line. Go with what you believe is right. Go with the law and put a value on our brothers and sisters' lives.
Well, now all three officers, including Derek Chauvin, have been found guilty. Leslie, what does this verdict actually signal to law enforcement in this country?
Well, it signals a couple of things. It signals that under the color of the law that you can't violate someone's rights. And in this particular case, when a person, a citizen, whether they are under suspicion of any crime, when that person tells you that they can't breathe or that something is wrong, that just because they are the subject of a criminal investigation doesn't give law enforcement the right to violate their rights to the degree that they completely ignore all of those medical related signals, right? And also this sets the precedent that you shouldn't ignore the concerns of others. If you remember during the stage trial of Derek Chauvin, there was a medic, an EMS person, I believe, or a fire person trained in as a firefighter, I believe. She testified that she understood that George Floyd was in a position where his life was in danger, and that she could tell that when he said that he could not breathe, the sound of his voice and just the nature in which Chauvin was holding him down was definitely indicative that somebody really could not breathe. And so what this trial says, as it pertains to the DOJ is establishing now, is that law enforcement, we are putting you on alert that you are no longer emboldened. You shouldn't feel emboldened any longer to violate someone's rights and to completely ignore all of the signs that people who are in these types of positions, and when their lives are in danger and when they tell you that their lives are in danger, that you need to adhere to it, regardless of whether they are the subject of criminal activity or not.
Okay, pause it right there, Shakita. Pause it right there. Okay. All right. So that was an excerpt from the Black News Channel today. That's your D. Tawalde making the case. She has an excellent show, excellent legal analysis. So her guests were former prosecutor Leslie Richard Chambers and former criminal defense attorney Lauren Prater. Okay. So check that out from February 24th, 2022, the Black News Channel on YouTube. All right, we're going to switch gears here. I want to go to this next story. We're going to clip 2 from Roland Martin Unfiltered, Chiquita. So I saw this article from February 21st from the New York Times. Black farmers fear foreclosure as debt relief remains frozen. And, we've talked about John Boyd, president of the Black Farmers Association, here in the show before. I've talked to him a couple of times when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and he was a guest on Tuesday's show to deal with this issue. Let's go to clip 2, Shakita. Okay, well, go ahead.
Black farmers across the nation face further challenges as some say they are dealing with collection notices instead of the promised debt relief offered by the federal government. In January of 2021, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said there would be a temporary suspension of past due debt collection and foreclosures for distressed direct loan borrowers due to the economic hardship imposed by the pandemic. However, Black farmers say they are still receiving notices for foreclosure. Earlier this month, USDA released a 2-minute video addressing the notices.
And I wanted to take a little time to talk to you about your direct FSA loans. In the last few weeks, you may have received some fairly ominous-looking notices from us that have created some confusion in light of the fact that we're under a suspension on adverse actions. I want first to stress that there is still a suspension on adverse actions, and the FSA doesn't intend to take any action that's indicated in the notices you may have received, and then explain why you're receiving those notices anyway. In the farm financial crisis of the 1980s, the FSA, then the Farmers Home Administration, fell way short of adequately servicing the loans of our direct loan borrowers. Oftentimes, borrowers were foreclosed on without even being made aware of the loan servicing options that were available to them that frankly could have kept them on the farm. As a result of this, a network of farm advocates was spawned. And those farm advocates did a great job of raising awareness, so much so that in the Ag Credit Act of 1987, Congress very clearly delineated the processes that we must undertake to notify borrowers of primary loan servicing options. That's why you received those notices today. I want to stress that this is only to make sure that you're aware of your loan servicing options. I further want to stress that you don't need to have missed a payment in order to exercise those primary loan servicing options. I highly encourage you to reach out to your local Farm Service Agency loan staff and explore those options and see what we can do to help you ensure that you've got a bright future in producing the food and fiber that this country.
The Center for Public Integrity reports in 2021, farmers repaid about $538,000 to the USDA from February to November, despite the suspension. Joining me now is the president of the National Black Farmers Association, John Boyd. Wonderful to see you, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I can only imagine the, heart drop that farmers.
All right, we're coming up on a break. Pause it right there. Just back it up about 20 seconds or so. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. All right. We got Sharon. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Who still needs to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays? From the Civil War to ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. All right, let's go back to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver, was sitting in for Roland on Tuesday, February 22nd. And we talked to John Boyd of the Black Farmers Association. Let's go back to this clip.
Are feeling, especially Black farmers are feeling, especially given our history of having our lands being snatched out from under us. What are you dealing with in terms of being able to get accurate information to the Black farmers that your organization organizes?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I can't help but to jump right in on that video. Black farmers don't need, new loan servicing or call for some sort of new option. We got the best deal we're going to get, 120% debt relief. And we've been blocked in 12 different lawsuits by white farmers who stopped the $4 billion of our debt relief that I personally, myself and others worked on for over three decades to get that relief. We didn't get it in both of the settlements, the Black Farmers Settlement, which I worked on for a very, very long time. And then after 2016, it was in the Farm Bill, it was taken out. And then it finally passed last March by the help of Senator Cory Booker and Senator Ralph Warnock from Georgia, put $5 billion for farmers of color. Farmers of color include Black farmers, Native American farmers, Hispanic farmers, Asian farmers. We finally got this little bit of justice because of all of the centuries of discrimination and wrongdoing. And then white farmers have the audacity to sue us and call it reverse discrimination. And we were some sort of way harming their farming operations by Black farmers receiving debt relief. Shame on white America, shame on white farmers for not understanding this horrific history and didn't take it into consideration. The whole 30 years I was trying to get that relief for Black farmers, white farmers never called up, never once reached out to me and said it was problematic or reverse discrimination. It was only problematic when it became reality and when it was passed and signed into law. Last July, President Biden said he would sit down with me to talk about next steps to come up with some sort of resolve from the administration. It's Black History Month, and I'm here to remind the president that meeting still hasn't happened.
Wow. So if you can then explain to us, so it sounds like you're in a little bit of legal limbo, right? That you have this law that is saying that you should have, and your farmers and Black farmers should have debt relief. But at the same time, they're getting, not only these collection notices from the Department of Agriculture, you also have the president who is saying that he's going to do something about it, but he's yet to have that sit down with you to figure out some way that they can mitigate the damage that the lawsuit is putting against you with regards to the white farmers' actions. Does it feel like you're in a little bit of a sort of conundrum here? I mean, what are Black farmers to do at this point?
I think what the administration came out with some sort of equity commission that they think is going to be helpful. We don't need another commission to talk about the stagnant numbers that I've shared with you and Roland and the panel before. We need action.
Yeah.
We need relief. We need access to credit. We need loans. And when that gentleman was talking about loan servicing, white farmers was getting debt relief. That's what debt relief is. 1951, S as in Sam. That's the loan servicing for this country under the United States Department of Agriculture. White farmers were receiving debt relief with ease when black farmers was receiving loan foreclosure notices in the mail, 30 days to pay their balance full. So we were never offered the debt relief. White farmers got it and got it with ease. And if it was up to these federal courts, they'd get it twice, and we still haven't gotten it. And that's what the difference here is. One specific race, in this case, white men, receiving all of the loans, all the servicing, all of the subsidies. And then you have black and other farmers of color who receive peanuts. And now that we have fix this, white farmers want to run to the courts for protection. They chose very conservative, it's very, very conservative judges that they chose, and very, very conservative courts. And they're a well-oiled machine. We need resources to fight this. There's a civil rights gentleman on your panel. He's a firecracker, it sounds like. He needs to take a look at this too. But we have a summary judgment that we're trying to respond to in the coming weeks in the state of Florida. We filed amicus briefs. The National Black Farmers Association and the American Farmers, Native American Farmers Association has filed amicus briefs in all 12 cases. So we are barely meeting these deadlines, but we need the support of Black community. We need athletes to get involved. These rappers and entertainers, they have to get involved in the Black Farmers movement. The oldest occupation for Black people in this country is farming, and we're facing extinction. So we need the involvement, and we need the support, and we need the help.
Absolutely. I would love to bring DeMario in to ask a question if you would like. To me, when I hear what you're saying, and I'm trying to think about the motivation of these white farmers bringing this lawsuit to try to block your debt relief, in my mind, I believe, and you can definitely feel free, Mr. Boyd, to answer as well, and then DeMario will definitely ask your question, but to me, it seems like they're trying to, this is an attempt at a land grab. That's ultimately what I believe is going on.
When we were losing the land through the county committee at USDA, it was white farmers who dominated these county committees. These 3-member panels in the country are made up of 99% white men. Mm-hmm. Those farms that were in federal inventory all went to white farmers, 99% who served on the county committee. Mm-hmm. So it was a legalized way by the United States Department of Agriculture to take away land from Black farmers. After we got the land from Civil War, that 20 million acres of land we owned at the turn of the century, we're down to 4.5 million acres. We represented 1 million Black farm families strong at the turn of the century.
All right, pause right there, Shakita.
50,000
right there.
Black farmers in this country. We're facing extinction.
Pause it right there. Stop the clip.
The United States Department.
Thank you. All right, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, we're running out of time. We're going to keep going. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, follow me, The African History Network on Facebook, The African History Network on Facebook, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. We're going to keep going for a few more minutes, and we'll let you hear the rest of that clip. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Be sure to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturday, it is from the ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That's 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We just posted the link here. And it's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also email me at AHNShow at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNShow at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, right now it's Correct Wrong Behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Let me cue this clip up here. I'm having some technical difficulties. Stand by. Let me cue this clip up. We're going to continue. Okay, just 1 second here.
So we need the involvement, and we need the support, and we need the help.
Absolutely. I would love to bring DeMario in to ask a question if he would like. To me, when I hear what you're saying, and I'm trying to think about the motivation of these white farmers bringing this lawsuit to try to block your debt relief. In my mind, I believe, and you can definitely feel free, Mr. Boyd, to answer as well. And then DeMario, definitely ask your question. But to me, it seems like they're trying, this is an attempt at a land grab. That's ultimately what I believe is going on.
When we were losing the land, through the county committee at USDA, it was white farmers who's dominated these county committees. These 3-member panels in the country are made up of 99% white men. Those farms that were in federal inventory all went to white farmers, 99% who served on the county committee. So it was a legalized way by the United States Department of Agriculture to take away land from black farmers. After we got the land from Civil War, that 20 million acres of land we owned at the turn of the century, we're down to 4.5 million acres. We represented 1 million black farm families strong at the turn of the century. We're down to 50,000 black farmers in this country. We're facing extinction, and partly due to the United States Department of Agriculture. So they're going to have to help us fix this. And I believe that Secretary Vilsack was the wrong person to send back to USDA when he's had 2 terms to fix it. And he's back there again. He knows the problem, and we don't need a new equity commission. We need some new equity results.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. DeMario, I would love to bring you in here. What are your thoughts about what black farmers can do right now? It's interesting that these white farmers are coming in, and I completely agree. It just seems like a delay tactic to say, oh, let's form a commission. No, let's act.
Panels, studies, that's all just delay tactics and ways to keep us from getting the justice that we deserve. As Brother Boyd stated, we don't need equity commissions. We need equity results. And I really appreciate him saying that. This really speaks to me because as an old country kid from Oklahoma whose family would own ranches back in the 1820s and 30s that we can trace back to, it really resonates to me to hear how our farmland and our land has been struck and stolen away from us. When you talk about those numbers going from 1 million farm families to down to 50,000, going from 20 million acres of land down to 4 or 5 million acres of land, it is disheartening. It is something that we definitely want to rally around you, Brother Boyd. I certainly want to connect with you and your organization, talk about the ways that maybe my organization, Justice for Greenwood, and some of the resources that I can bring with other firms that do pro bono work. We cannot allow this continue to happen without a fight. We understand what we're up against. We understand that we have a tall hill to climb, but we must fight for our rights and our dignity at all times. And I will fight with you, brother. I will stand next to you. I will speak for you. I will fight, and no surrender, no retreat. Give me a call. We'll get together and we'll try to fight this as best we can for those 50,000 farmers, black farmers who need relief.
Absolutely. Michael, do you have any questions for Mr. Boyd?
Hey, Brother Boyd, thanks for coming back. Last time you were on, you were talking about Pepsi and how Pepsi was going back on their verbal agreement to provide contracts to grow potatoes and things like that. So, I've been talking about this and the plight of black farmers, even going back to the Stein Seed Company and the lawsuit that black farmers had against the Stein Seed Company over soybeans. So how do you all proceed with fighting this? We know white farmers have sued. We know this was part of the American Rescue Plan. We know no Republicans voted for the American Rescue Plan. We know Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina went on Face the Nation attacking this debt relief, and as well as Lindsey Graham. So how do you fight this, and how can we help? What role can African Americans play, and also the Congressional Black Caucus also?
Well, we have to fight it in courts, like we're doing now. So we filed the amicus briefs in every one of the courts, and we're looking at different ways that we could maybe win. I'm a winner. I want to win. I want to win, and we have so many challenges. Like you spoke about the issue with Pepsi, where they reneged on the potato contract. That's something that we need the support of the general public. And I touched on it earlier. We have many successful blacks in this country, athletes and entertainers. You know, we saw them at the PepsiCo halftime show. Those three, instead of dancing for Pepsi, they need to be dancing for black farmers and rapping for black farmers. They have to have songs about the land and buying land. People, we got to buy some land. If you want to fix this, buy some land, buy a building if you're in business, buy a lot in a subdivision, but you have to buy some land. We have a song out that I would like everybody on this panel to look and circulate. I did it with KJ Marley, Bob Marley's grandson, about the land. People, this is about the land. So it's about, of course, it's about access to credit to USDA, the banks, the top 10 banks. I didn't talk about them. They wrote to the president and Congress that us receiving the $5 billion would be harmful to them too. So we need to hold the bank. The agriculture companies, PepsiCo, John Deere, who won't service blacks, service us last after these tractors cut off and we can't start them back up until a technician comes out. There's a laundry list of companies that are dumping on black farmers. The government dumped on black farmers. White farmers dumped on black farmers, made us sharecroppers. They stole all the land from the Indians and they want to steal it all from the blacks. This is about land. And everybody on this panel, every step you take, every step you make requires land. You can either trespass on somebody else's or take a step on your own. Don't buy those new Cadillacs and Mercedes-Benz. Buy some land. Land is where it's at. Land is going to be the way that we're going to change this for the young people that are looking at this. Start investing in land ownership. If you only do buying houses, buy some land.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Mustafa, do you have any questions?
Well, Brother Boyd, it's good to see you again. My grandfather was a small farmer. We still have that land that he purchased over 100 years ago now. I'm curious, have you utilized Title VI of the Civil Rights Act yet, which says that folks can't utilize federal funds to discriminate against folks of color, or based on national origin? So I'm curious if that's been a part of the work that's been going on so far.
Absolutely, yes, it is. And we've looked at all of the numbers, all of these statistics, many of the information that I just spoke to you about is all spelled out in our amicus briefs that I filed in these 12 courts. One thing I didn't say is that these 12 complaints that were filed by white farmers were filed in conservative courts, conservative judgeships. They're well funded. This Sid Miller from Texas, the former agriculture secretary there, is leading the campaign, raising money, and filing these lawsuits around the country. We got to start doing the same thing. We got to become well organized. We got to become well funded so we can defend ourselves. And like I spoke about earlier, 39 years, I never sued a white farmer saying that they shouldn't get something. I filed those complaints in federal court so we can get two words: same as, period. Mm-hmm. Same as. We want the same servicing. We want the same contracts, not a word different than white farmers are getting. We want the same loan amounts if we qualify. We want the same amount of subsidies. People, same as. Don't look at me because I'm 6 foot tall and 240 pounds and dark as can and deep baritone voice. Judge me on my 39 years as a farmer, a skilled farmer, that I learned from my grandfather who slept with his deed underneath his mattress, and my daddy who taught me how to plow a mule and work all day and tie a Windsor knot in my shirt. These are things that we are teaching ourselves as black farmers. Go back and reinvent the land and get reconnected with land ownership in this country. That's how we're going to become and beat a whole lot of the barriers that affect us right now, by buying land.
Well, that is a powerful charge for us all. Buy land. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mr. Boyd.
All right. So that was from Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Um, Roland Martin and the filter, John Boyd, was giving us an update on what's going on. And he said, buy some land. Absolutely. And he said the entertainers, the artists that were performing at the Super Bowl, they need to rap about the black farmers and make songs about the black farmers and support the black farmers also. I totally agree with that. Dr. Dre paid $7 million to be able to put on that Super Bowl show, okay, that lasted 13 minutes. Okay, so you figure out the math on that, how much it costs per minute. He paid $7 million to be able to do that. One of the articles I was showing on the screen here while I played that segment, we talked about this story back when it came out in May of 2021. This is one of the things that John Boyd was talking about. Banks fight $4 billion debt relief plan for black farmers. Banks fight $4 billion debt relief plan for black farmers. Lenders are pressuring the agriculture department to give them more money, saying quick repayments will cut into profits. Okay, so you had 10 banks, I think it was 10. I think the number was 10, who are putting pressure on the agriculture department, saying, wait a second, if you give these black farmers this debt relief, they're going to pay off their loans sooner, and we're going to make less interest on the loans, and that's going to, our shareholders are not going to be happy. This is what John Boyd was just talking about. The Biden administration's efforts to provide $4 billion in debt relief to minority farmers is encountering stiff resistance from banks, which are complaining that the government initiative to pay off the loans of borrowers who have faced decades of financial discrimination will cut into their profits and hurt investors. The debt relief was approved as part of the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that Congress passed in March of 2021, the American Rescue Plan, that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for, even though you have some Republicans in the House trying to take credit for the good things that the American Rescue Plan did. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the bill. Zero. And the debt relief was intended to make amends for the discrimination that Black and other non-white farmers have faced from lenders and the United States Department of Agriculture over the years. But no money has yet gone out the door because lawsuits were filed by white farmers saying that they were being discriminated against and their constitutional rights are being violated because they can't take advantage of the debt relief. But white farmers have already had debt relief. There've already been debt relief programs for white farmers that African-American farmers were excluded from. Instead, the program has become mired in controversy and lawsuits. In April, white farmers who claim that they are victims of reverse discrimination sued the U.S. Department of Agriculture over the initiative. Now, three of the biggest banking groups, the American Bankers Association, the Independent Community Bankers of America, and National Rural Lenders Association, are waging their own fight and complaining about the cost of being repaid early. They're saying, wait a second, if you give them this debt relief, they're going to pay the loans off early. We're not going to make as much money off of them. So we can't have that. Their argument stems from the way banks make money from loans and how they decide where to extend credit. When a bank lends money to a borrower, like a farmer, it considers several factors, including how much interest it will earn over the lifetime of the loan and whether the bank can sell the loan to other investors. By allowing borrowers to repay their debts early, the lenders are being denied income they have long expected, they argue. The banks want the federal government to pay money beyond the outstanding loan amount so that banks and investors will not miss out on interest income that they were expecting or money that they would have made reselling the loans to other investors. Read the rest of this article here. We talked about this back in May 2021 when this story broke. Banks fight $4 billion debt relief plan for Black farmers. Let's check that out from the New York Times, okay? All right, and then this other article here, this is from truthout.org. Truthout.org. Promised debt relief, some Black farmers instead get collection notices. Promised debt relief, some Black farmers instead get collection notices. And then also this one here from the New York Times. Black farmers fear foreclosure as debt relief remains frozen. Now, as the representative from the Department of Agriculture said, they're not going to foreclose on any loans. The notice that was sent out was just a formality. Okay, but this goes in and talks. So this is from February 21st, 2022. And this talks more about the American Rescue Plan and the lawsuit, but it talks about the notices that they've been getting also, and how the farmers are falling further behind in debt. Where is this here? Let's go here. Instead, Mr. Smith, they talk about Brandon Smith, who's a farmer, a fourth generation cattle rancher from Texas, Brandon Smith. Instead, Brandon Smith has fallen deeper into debt. Months after signing the paperwork, he received a notice informing him that the federal government intended to accelerate foreclosure on his 46-acre property and cattle if he did not start making payments on the loans he believed had been forgiven. Okay, now it talks about the courts in Wisconsin. The legal limbo has created. Okay, but they're not foreclosing on loans now. That's why they put out the video, the Department of Agriculture. In this article, they also talk about page 2. Okay, the law was intended to, the American Rescue Plan, the debt forgiveness in the American Rescue Plan was intended to help remedy years of discrimination that non-white farmers have endured, including land theft and the rejection of loan applications by banks and the federal government. The program designated aid to about 15,000 borrowers who receive loans directly from the federal government or have their bank loans guaranteed by the USDA. Those eligible included farmers and ranchers who have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice, including those who are Black or African American, Native American, Alaskan Native, Asian American, Pacific Islander, or Hispanic. White farmers were suing, saying that they're being discriminated against and can't take advantage of this, but they don't want to deal with the history of decades of discrimination that non-whites have suffered from the federal government. They don't want to talk about that at all. Then it goes on to say banks were unhappy that the loans would be repaid early. Banks were unhappy that the loans would be repaid early, depriving them of interest payments. Groups of white farmers in Wisconsin, North Dakota, Oregon, and Illinois sued the U.S. Department of Agriculture, arguing that offering debt relief on the basis of skin color is discriminatory, suggesting that a successful Black farmer could have his debts cleared while a struggling white farmer could go out of business. Now, America First Legal, a group led by the former Trump administration official Stephen Miller, that white supremacist Stephen Miller, researched that white supremacist Stephen Miller that was an advisor to Donald Trump. Stephen Miller's America First legal group filed a lawsuit making a similar argument in U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas to block the debt relief for black farmers and non-white farmers. Last June, before the money started flowing, a federal judge in Florida blocked the program on the basis that it applied, quote, strictly on racial grounds, end quote, irrespective of or regardless of any other factor. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. This is from February 21st, 2022. Black farmers fear foreclosure as debt relief remains frozen. This is from the New York Times. Okay, how's everybody doing here? We'll post a link here to this article. You can read that. All right. We're going to do a very, very quick update on Ukraine. We'll talk about this some more tomorrow. I'm working on a presentation that I have to do Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday for 2 hours. And that means I got to do about 3 hours worth of reading of articles to prepare for the show. And then I'm also working on a presentation, a Black History Month presentation I have to do for a church Saturday morning, about 10 a.m. And then 2 o'clock on Saturday, I have to teach my online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So it's a busy time right now. I want to go to, let's go to this here from, we have updates from New York Times on, let's look at the updates because I have Washington Post, New York Times, and NBC News up dealing with Ukraine. Let's look at the updates here from the New York Times, the live update from the New York Times. And we're going to go to this clip here from NBC Nightly News here in just a minute. What is this doing? All right, who still needs to register for the 10-week online courses that I teach on the weekends? Our next class is this Saturday and Sunday. So if we look here for a quick update, and I'm going to cue this up here also. Okay, Russia launches full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Okay, just a second here. All right, here we go. And can we get this queued up? Just a second here. Okay, let's try to get that queued up also here. All right, but anyway, so very quickly here, an explosion is reported. An explosion is reported over Kyiv. Ukraine's president says he's target number one. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences, President Joe Biden said, in announcing new sanctions on Russia, and Russia advances on Kyiv. Let's see here. Okay, let's cue that up. Hold on, just a second here, because I'm having technical difficulties and my wireless mouse is acting up on me, so I have to use the keyboard on the laptop. Okay, hold on. Okay, this is the clip I need here. All right, let's cue that up. Okay, so we look quickly here at this. Let's see, video show a large explosion in the sky over southern Kyiv. Videos verified by the New York Times showed a large explosion in the sky over the outskirts of southern Kyiv early Friday morning. Witnesses filmed fiery debris falling over parts of the city. The videos appeared to show at least 2 surface-to-air missiles fired near Kyiv before the explosion. Okay, so they have a map here showing reported ground fighting. There was a better condensed update I want to go to from NBC News here in just a second. But let's go to this clip here. This is from NBC Nightly News.
Bloodied, staggering out of their homes. And this is what remains of another. It was unprovoked, but this is what Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashed on Ukraine as the sun came up this morning. A missile striking an industrial park in western Ukraine. A helicopter assault on an airport outside of Kiev. Close, intense fighting. And there are civilian casualties. Local officials say this apartment building was struck in eastern Ukraine. Heartbreaking images of people bloodied, staggering out of their homes. And this is what remains of another family's apartment. A baby stroller among the debris. We traveled to this Ukrainian military installation near the eastern port city of Mariupol.
This radar station took a direct hit. Russia is picking off Ukraine's military facilities one after another. But Ukrainian troops are fighting back, and Russia is also suffering losses here.
Ukraine says it's destroyed some Russian tanks using American supplied missiles, that this is a damaged Russian helicopter, and that it has captured some Russian soldiers. On day one, the army has been holding strong, but they're being pushed to the limit by Russia's full-scale invasion with attacks across Ukraine, which is the size of Texas, from areas near those pro-Russian enclaves in the east to the capital Kiev in the west, even capturing the still radioactive Chernobyl nuclear reactor. It all began from a desk before dawn when Russian President Vladimir Putin declared a special military operation on Russian television. Russia cannot feel safe, develop, and exist with a constant threat emanating from the territory of modern Ukraine, he said, describing the government in Kiev as a junta of neo-Nazis determined to build nuclear weapons. It was a split-screen moment, Putin announcing his assault as his actions were slammed at the UN Security Council, Ukraine's ambassador blasting Russia's representative.
The Russian president declared a war on the record. Should I play the video of your president? There is no purgatory for war criminals. They go straight to hell.
Later, after Putin stopped speaking on cue, the missiles and airstrikes began. Russian tanks rolling across the border from Belarus in the north and Crimea in the south. For Ukrainians, the choice was to hide in deep Soviet-era subways built long ago to shelter Ukrainians from an American attack, or to run if they could get through the traffic heading out of Kiev, or to ride it out, stocking up on food and cash.
How are you feeling? This is your mother.
I'm trying to keep my children calm, Putin is not helping. We are Ukraine, she says.
Putin says he's doing Ukrainians a favor by trying to get rid of their Nazi fascist government. What do you think about that?
He isn't protecting us, she says. It would be better if he sat there in Russia and did not touch anyone or anything here. Ukraine is fighting for its right to exist as a sovereign country and against a man who says Ukraine belongs to him.
Okay, so that was from NBC Nightly News from February 24th, 2022. Just a second here. Let me close this out. Okay. If we look here quickly at this article from the Washington Post, because Putin is using this lie that he's trying to denazify Ukraine. That's why he's invading and has like 200,000 troops to invade. Okay, how many Nazis are you? How many neo-Nazis are you saying that are there? Putin says he will denazify Ukraine. Here's the history behind that claim. This is from the Washington Post. From February. It's from February 24th, 2022. Okay, Russian President Vladimir Putin invoked the Nazis on Thursday, February 24th, when he announced his decision to launch a large-scale military operation in Ukraine. The Russian leader said that one of the goals of the offensive was to denazify the country, part of a long-running effort to put by Putin to delegitimize Ukrainian nationalism and sell the incursion to his constituency at home. Now, you have some dumbass black people on social media circulating this nonsense and saying, oh, Putin wants to denazify Ukraine. That's a false flag. You need to do more research. The rhetoric around fighting fascism resonates deeply in Russia, which made tremendous sacrifices battling Nazi Germany in World War II. And when you look at the International Day of Remembrance of the Holocaust, January 27th, it commemorates January 27th, 1945, when the Soviet troops liberate the prisoners in Auschwitz, Poland, of the Auschwitz death camps, the concentration camps in Auschwitz, Poland. That was January 27th, 1945. Now, critics say that Putin is exploiting the trauma of the war and twisting the history for his own interests. But when you have people that don't know history, they don't know when they're being lied to about history. In his narrative, the West overlooked the role the Soviet Union, Russia's predecessor state, the Soviet Union, the predecessor to Russia. In Putin's narrative, the West overlooked the role the Soviet Union played in the fight. In the war's aftermath, the United States and other Western nations formed the NATO military alliance as a bulwark against the Soviet Union. Now, Putin sees NATO as an existential threat and Ukraine's bid for membership as a red line for Russia's security. When Putin was growing up, the Second World War was at the center of Soviet identity, and the enemies were the fascists, said Timothy Snyder, a professor of history at Yale University. The irony now, Professor Snyder said, is that Putin appears to be fighting a war the way that actual Nazis did. He appears to be fighting a war the way actual Nazis did, invading neighbors on the pretext that their borders are irrelevant. But Putin's attempt to recast Ukraine's government as fascist drew widespread condemnation on Thursday, February 24th, including from Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who is both Jewish and had family members die in the Holocaust. So Putin's lie is being exposed. 3 of President Vladimir Zelensky's great uncles were executed as part of the German-led genocide of European Jews during World War II. The president said on a trip to Jerusalem in 2020, Vladimir Zelensky said this on the trip to Jerusalem in 2020. His grandfather, who was the brother of those killed, survived. 40 years later, his grandson became president, Vladimir Zelensky said in an address. Now, the Ukrainian leader also fired back at Putin's Nazi claim Thursday, saying on Twitter that Russia had attacked Ukraine just as Nazi Germany did. Russia attacked Ukraine just as Nazi Germany did. One of World War II's worst massacres took place near the Ukrainian capital in 1941 when German-led forces killed tens of thousands of Jews in the ravine of Babi Yar, Y-A-R. Zelensky said on Twitter, addressing Putin, quote, "As of today, our countries are on different sides of world history. As of today, our countries are on different sides of world history. Russia has embarked on a path of evil." Now, according to Michael McFaul, who's been on MSNBC all day long the past couple of days or so, according to Michael McFaul, a former U.S. ambassador to Russia, he said, quote, "There is a history of some Ukrainians fighting on the Nazi side, but a very small group." Because all people have had traitors. Well, Jews had collaborators and traitors. You know, all people have had traitors. But you don't have 200,000 Soviet troops, Russian troops going to Ukraine for a handful of Nazis or neo-Nazis. Michael McFaul made these remarks in an appearance on MSNBC on Thursday. Putin, he said, quote, "is pulling out that thread from history to say that what you had was a neo-Nazi usurpation of power in Ukraine in 2014, when Ukrainian protesters ousted the Russian-backed leader and the new government pushed to join NATO. In response to those protests, Russia invaded and annexed Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, from Ukraine in 2014 and began backing a separatist insurgency in the country's east. The conflict there has simmered for years. All right. So now Putin is trying to paint Vladimir Zelensky's government as Nazis supported by NATO, Michael McFaul said. According to Putin, he must fight to save the Russian-speaking community in eastern Ukraine. Okay, read the rest of this article here. This is from the Washington Post. It debunks this nonsense about denazifying Ukraine. Putin says he would denazify Ukraine. Here's the history behind that. Okay. All right. Okay. Be sure to register for the online class I teach on the weekend. On Saturdays, it is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, and we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So you can use this information with your children. Also, I would say the content is PG-13. And It's very interactive. You know, we have a ton of information in it. It's very visual. We deal with ancient Africa. We deal with the Nile Valley region of Africa, ancient civilizations, and we go throughout history and deal with, you know, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, let me flip over this here. So I'll post the link again. You can register for the class. Then also it's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. A problem here. Okay, so some of the things we deal with in the online course, we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We deal with some of the origins of Freemasonry, and we deal with similarities between the layout of Washington, D.C. and ancient Kemet also. Tony Browder deals with this a lot in Egypt on the Potomac. Browder deals with this a lot in Egypt on the Potomac also, and that's one of the books we use in the class. So we deal with the first Holy Trinity of Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And we deal with a timeline of history as well. Thousands of years that lead up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place, okay? When we look at the Tekken that comes out of the mythology of Asar, Set, and Heru, the Greeks called it an obelisk. There were approximately 1,200 Tekkenu built in ancient Kemet, but only about a dozen are found today in Egypt. And many of the Tekkenu removed from Egypt are now in Istanbul, Turkey, London, England, Paris, France, Berlin, Germany, New York, Rome, Italy, Vatican City, and elsewhere throughout the world. The Tekkenu are now called obelisks by their new owners, and few know their origin or that they symbolize the resurrection of the African king Asar. If you read Egypt on the Potomac, page 17, Browder breaks this down there. Now, I'm going to just deal with a couple of quick things here because I'm having some technical difficulties here. So the word Mason is derived from the Latin words mass and sun. Mason means child of light and expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. The term child of light or sons and daughters of light was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet. Many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples of ancient Kemet, places where light or knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. Okay. Now, if we look at, so there's over 200 slides in the class, and we do a PowerPoint presentation that have over 50 articles that we reference, various books. You don't have to buy any of the books to be able to follow along in class, but we go through and look at we go through and look at history, everything from the judgment scene to and then if we go through, let's see here, we look at some of the origins of Christmas as well and why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th. One thing that's important to understand is the patron saints. We look at center class and Saint Nicholas because Saint Nicholas was a real saint. He was an African man, 4th century Myra and was present-day Turkey. Greek Orthodox bishop, born in 280 AD, Common Era, born to wealthy parents and gave away his inheritance to the poor. And one of the things we talk about is center class, who is the religious is a religious character that we see in Holland and the Netherlands, things like this. Center class in Dutch means Saint Nicholas. Okay, center class in the Dutch language means Saint Nicholas, and we're going to see that it's going to be this religious figure of center class that wears red and white. We're going to see that it's this religious figure that then gets transformed into Santa Claus. Okay, it's this religious figure of center class that gets transformed into Santa Claus, and Santa Claus wears red and white also. We're going to see that center class gets introduced by the Dutch to the U.S., to the colonies in the early 1700s, even before the American Revolutionary War. You have an influx of Dutch coming in, and they bring center class with them. Okay, and center class has a sidekick who's a Moor named Zwarte Piet, Black Pete. So we get into this mythology in the class, and this deals with the dehumanization, dehumanization of the Moors also. Okay, Zwarte Piet means Black Pete, and in one of the versions of the story, Black Pete is a Moor who is really a slave to center class. Some say a servant, some say a slave to center class. But Black Pete was introduced in a children's book in right about 1850, and you have this parade of people dressing up as Black Pete in the Netherlands around December 5th, and they're wearing they put on blackface makeup, afro wigs, red lipstick on their lips, things like this, to imitate Black Pete. Usually gold hoop earrings as well, to imitate Black Pete. But this is very dehumanizing, and there's been each year there's more and more backlash against this celebration that takes place. All right, Dominique said thanks for being consistent. This ain't easy, trust me. So we deal with the origins of the Immaculate Conception story and the virgin birth and the adoration, things like this. These are very ancient stories that date back to at least 3300 BC in ancient Nubia, Ta-Nehisi. These are stories retold over and over again, adapted to various people's cultures. We deal with why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th as well. So we go throughout history to understand what happened to us. We look at the, even before slavery existed, we deal with the African presence in the Americas and in South America, going back at least 56,000 years ago. We look at some work from Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Some of you all have seen the interviews I've done with him. He's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him a number of times. Some of you have heard seen some of the interviews. Some of you have read his book. His new book is out. His second one, The First Americans Were Africans, Revised and Expanded. We look at some of the pre-Christian origins of Christmas as well. The festival of Yule, Saturnalia, the Roman festival of Saturnalia, the Persian festival of Mithra. These are precursors to the Christian celebration of Christmas. Okay, so you know historical events don't happen in a vacuum. They are the culmination of a sequence of historical events that take place. And we have to understand how all this is connected. All right. We look at the film Black Panther and the African influence in the film Black Panther. There were 11 different African cultures that we see represented in the film Black Panther. And when you see the Panther deity of Bast, the Black Panther, the Black actual Panther deity that they say watches over the people of Wakanda. Well, Bast or Bastet in ancient Kemet was an ancient Egyptian goddess or ancient Kemetic goddess or Neter, worshipped in the form of a lioness and later a cat. She was a Neter of warfare in Lower Kemet and worshipped as early as the Second Dynasty, or around 2890 BCE, before the Common Era. When we look at Wakanda in the comic books and Wakandan religion and its tribes, the religion of the Wakandan people, and Wakanda is made up of 18 different clans of people, or 18 different cultures. Okay, you have the Jabari tribe, you have the crocodile tribe, things like that. Wakanda, even though it's one nation, there are different ethnic groups in Wakanda. There's 18 different tribes that make up the people of Wakanda. So the religion of the Wakandan people first developed through the pilgrimage to the land. In their conflict with the originators, the gods of Wakanda formed from the heroes of humans within the tribe. Ascending to the status of a god, these heroes became known as the Orisha. Now, the Orisha are the name. That's what the deities in the spiritual system of Ifa, practiced amongst the Yoruba in Nigeria, is called the Orisha. The deities, the forces of nature, just like the Neteru, they're called the Orisha. Taking the names Koku, Thoth. Now, Thoth is what the Greeks call Dehuti. Okay, Dehuti is the one that delivers the Annunciation to the Virgin Auset, that she's going to give birth to Heru, who the Greeks called Horus, what you call an immaculate conception. That's Dehuti, who is the netter of divine articulation of speech and science and mathematics, things like this. That's Dehuti, that has the ibis, the deity with the ibis head. That's Dehuti that delivers the immaculate conception. Okay, well, the Greeks called Dehuti Thoth. So you have the names Koku, Thoth, Bast, coming from Bastet, from ancient Kemet, Mujaji, and Ptah, which is one of the original Neter, Ptah, coming from ancient Kemet, and Niami. The Orishas' origins date back to the ancient Egyptian beings known as the Ennead. Now, this is straight from the Black Panther comic book. This is straight from the world of Wakanda. The Ennead is Greek, which means 9. It refers to the original 9 Neteru, the Ennead. So when you get into so this is just a few other things that we deal with in the class is deep. That's why it's 10 weeks, right? What are the Ennead? Ennead means group of 9 in Greek. In Kemet, they were called Pesjet. The 9 Neteru were Atom, the sun, Shu, air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb, earth, and Nut, sky, Asar, and Auset, Seth, and Nephitis. Okay, you read pages 274 to 277 of Ancient Egypt by Lorna Oakes and Lucia Galen, and also Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. They break this down, dealing with the Ennead. Well, that's all in the Black Panther comic book. So when we deal with the Black Panther and especially the movie Black Panther, I've done lectures on this. I mean, the Black Panther, man, reconnects us to African history and culture. It's a deep movie. I had to do a lot of research to really be able to do my lectures dealing with the film Black Panther. Okay, so and then the language spoken in the film Black Panther is isiXhosa. isiXhosa is a Bantu language. All right, just like Kiswahili is a Bantu language as well. The language spoken in the film Black Panther is a real language. It's isiXhosa, and it's spoken in Southern Africa. Okay, so we deal with different African nations and civilizations like Carthage. Okay, and we deal with Hannibal Barca. Okay, Hannibal in the Battle of Cannae, 216 BC, and what happened to Carthage? Carthage destroyed by Rome, 146 BCE, before the Common Era. We deal with Ta-Nehisi. We deal with Great Zimbabwe. It's a ton of information that we deal with in the class. Okay, so this is a 10-week online class. Now, we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. Okay, you can go back and watch it as much as you want to, and even after the 10-week online course is over with, you still, these are actual slides from the class, by the way. After the 10-week online class is over with, you can still have access to the full class. You can watch it as much as you want to. Right? So, and we deal with the Moors, the Africans known as the Moors, going into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, in 711 AD. And they fight against the Vandals and the Visigoths. And I wish we had never taught them, okay? Because everything we taught the Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. George G.M. James talks about the Moors and stolen legacy. He said the Moors were the custodians of the ancient Egyptian mystery system. The Moors are taking the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and this is going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. And when you look at Columbus is using nautical instruments based upon technology that the Moors introduced into Europe. All that stuff came back on us. The Moors introduced something called a fire stick. Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay talks about this. They introduced something called a fire stick, which is a long stick that fire one projectile. The Europeans are going to take this and create the first firearm in Europe in mid 14th century AD, right around 1346 AD. So when they're going into these lands and conquering people, they're taking firearms, the cannon, the Bible, alcohol, disease, all types of things. All this stuff comes back to all of this comes back to kick us in the behind. Okay. So then we go through and look at a timeline of history so we can put all this history in chronological order. All right. We deal with General Tariq ibn Ziyad, 711 AD, who goes into the Iberian Peninsula, and the Moors fight against the Vandals and the Visigoths, and where they land it's called Tariq's Mountain, or Jebel Tariq, also known as Gibraltar, or the Rock of Gibraltar, named after Tariq ibn Ziyad. We talk about Saint Maurice, the Black Moor Saint Maurice, who became a patron saint to Germany. So we have to, especially during African American History Month, Black History Month, we have to deal with this type of history. Okay. Yes, we have to talk about the history of slavery, but put it into historical perspective. Okay. This is you have to deal with the history before 1441, before the transatlantic slave trade begins. You have to deal with the history before 1526, and the Spanish are taking Africans into the territory we call South Carolina and Georgia. You have to deal with the history before 1619 in Virginia, and the 20 and odd Africans are on the White Lion pirate ship, in exchange for food and water and supplies. We can't start our history conquered by Europeans shackled in chains. Okay, our history doesn't begin there. And if you think that your history starts in slavery, you'll mistakenly think anything you do after slavery is somehow progress. These are the national flags of Corsica and Sardinia. Okay, the French island of Corsica and the Italian island of Sardinia. They have the Moors' heads on them because the Moors were in those areas, and it took a monumental effort to conquer the Moors. So they have the Moors, the African Moors' heads on their national flags today. When you research this, they still have them on their national flags today. Okay, and then we deal with things like Christopher. We have to deal with Columbus, and one of the books we look at is Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust: Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism. We look at Columbus and what was Columbus searching for? What was his deal with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella? But when, Columbus never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. The closest he comes here is Cuba, which is 90 miles away. He never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. Where does he go? His first voyage in 1492, he goes into the Bahamas, what he calls San Salvador, which means Saint Savior. He goes into Cuba. He goes to Hispaniola, La Española, or Hispaniola. And on the western portion of the island of Hispaniola, the western third of the island of Hispaniola, is Santo Domingo or Saint Dominique, or what becomes Haiti or Haiti. Okay, Haiti coming from the name from the Taino, Haiti. And then we know that we know France is going to take over Haiti. Okay, take over and call it, they'll take over that western third, called it Saint Dominique. And then you have the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804, and the Haitians are going to call it Haiti. Those Africans are going to call it Haiti. But because of the Haitian Revolution, and because partly because France is spending so much money, about to go bankrupt, fighting the Haitians, they sell the land that they have here, the Louisiana Territory, 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre. The U.S. buys that for about $15 million. And what this does is doubles the territory of the U.S. at the time and increases the need for more African slave labor here in the U.S. because the U.S. carves out about 15 states out of the territory that they buy from France. Now, we know France stole it from Native Americans and African people who were already here. France had no legal claim to it. But because of the increase of land that the U.S. gets, this increases the need for African slave labor in those territories that they decide to have slavery. So we get to see how all these different historical events are connected. And Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, these Caribbean islands that were conquered by Columbus over 500 years ago have never recovered from what happened to them. They've never recovered from what Spain did to them. They never recovered from what Spain did to them. Or Great Britain. We know that Great Britain takes over Jamaica and colonizes Jamaica. Okay, they've never recovered from that. This is why many of these Caribbean nations are seeking reparations from these European nations, rightfully so. All right. So this is just a brief overview. There were over 200 slides in the class, okay? If you like this type of information, go ahead and register for our online class. We have the link in the thread of this broadcast here. And this helps support the African History Network. This helps us stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay the bills. And the class is on 2 different digital platforms. I have to pay each month for those platforms. So this helps support all of this. The class is on sale, only $80, regularly $130. It's a 10-week online class. It takes a lot to teach the class. I teach that class on Saturday. On Sundays, I teach from ancient from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And that's both classes are 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. each day, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. If you miss class, that's fine. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime, not a problem. If you've taken any of my online classes in the past, email me at TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You get a 50% discount. Okay. Now, as soon as you register, there's content you can start watching. You can watch last week's class, and there's bonus content. There are also going to be 15 bonus lectures that you get from me when you register for Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. It's the Michael Imhotep 15 lecture bundle pack, the Black History Month bundle pack. You get the lectures in digital download format. Okay, so they'll be there because I'm uploading those this weekend. So you get 15 extra lectures. So it's a huge value that you get. Now, you can register for both classes. We have a bundle pack where you can register for both classes for only $120. The classes are regularly $230 each. We have a bundle pack. You can register for both classes for $120. Okay. And if you've taken any of my online classes before, and I've been teaching these classes since 2017, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, I've been teaching that on and off since 2017. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, I've been teaching that since 2021, because there's so much information I had for Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. There's so much information. I could not get all of it into 10, 11, or 12 weeks. So from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, I had to split that up. Now, see, this is the binder that I use for the second class, where we deal with history from. We start with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Okay, but this is the binder. Everything from the Louisiana Purchase to the Missouri Compromise of 1820 to the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, Mexican-American War 1846-1848, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo 1848. We did all that in the second class. So we can go through and analyze history in Dr. Leonard Jeffries is one of my teachers. So when he teaches history in 50-year increments. Okay. So this is where I learned this from. So we go through in each class with from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, 1865 to 1968. We go through and look at history in 10, 15, 20-year increments. There's a timeline of history that we look at, but then we go through and break this down to understand what led to the Civil War taking place. We look at the Compromise of 1877. We look at, like last week, the class we just did this past week, we looked at the American Nativist Party that was created around 1854 called the Know Nothings. And they were created right before the Republican Party was created in 1854, because the Republican Party was created as a backlash to the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed the territory out west. It left up to the people moving to that territory to determine whether or not they were going to have slavery, which infuriated a lot of abolitionists. Okay, this allows slavery to spread, and you're going to have armed conflict in the Kansas territory called Bleeding Kansas from 1855 to 1859. You have armed conflict between pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups in the Kansas territory. It's called Bleeding Kansas, right? These are events that lead up to the Civil War exploding. The Civil War didn't just happen out of anywhere. They were trying to keep a civil war from happening, going back. When you look at things like the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which dealt with organizing the land that the U.S. got from the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. And the Missouri Compromise of 1820, it allowed Missouri to come into the Union as a slaveholding state and allowed Maine to come in as a free state, because they kept a balance between slaveholding states and free states. So in 1820, there was 11 slaveholding states and 11 free states. So they kept a balance, but the Missouri Compromise passes Congress. Okay, this becomes law, passes Congress, and it states that slavery is prohibited in the remaining territories. Okay, this is organizing that land that the U.S. got from the Louisiana Purchase. Well, in the Dred Scott decision, March 6, 1857, the U.S. Supreme Court rules that the Missouri Compromise of 1820 is unconstitutional, which nullifies Dred Scott's argument, because Wisconsin was one of the territories that Dred Scott was taken into. Wisconsin was free territory because of the Missouri Compromise. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. Now, the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 is going to replace the Missouri Compromise, but here you have the judicial branch of the federal government interpreting law from the legislative branch of the federal government, and they nullify Dred Scott's argument. A lot of people say, oh, they said, no black man has a right, another white man has to honor, and black people can never be citizens, things like this. They don't read the rest of the ruling. They rule that the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. So that's 1857. Now that's after the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 became law, which is part of the Compromise of 1850, which dealt with 5 bills to organize the land that the U.S. got from Mexico after the Mexican-American War ended. So we go through history and look and see what leads to the Civil War taking place, 1861, 1865, attack on Fort Sumter, April 12, 1861. After Lincoln wins the presidential election, November 6, 1860, he's the Republican candidate for president. The Republican Party is only 6 years old at this time. Republican Party wasn't founded until 1854. They're only 6 years old. 6 weeks after Lincoln wins the presidency, becomes president-elect, South Carolina becomes the first state to secede from the Union, December 20th, 1860. And this is going to lead to the Civil War exploding. Then we deal with the Reconstruction era, 1865, 1877, which is not taught a lot in schools. And teachers don't really know about the history of Reconstruction. Okay? Teachers really don't know about the history of Reconstruction. So I'm going to show you this, and then we got to get out of here because I have a lot of work to do. And I have to teach 2 classes this weekend and do a presentation. And I have to do Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. And I do my radio show Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. So on Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, but Sundays, we're on 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Okay, so let me close this here. Time Magazine has this piece. I did a presentation for Tech Town here in Detroit. What was that, Tuesday, Wednesday? Did it Tuesday for Black History Month. I did a presentation for them. I was on a panel discussion dealing with reparations for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated on Wednesday. Today was my slow day, by the way. Today was the way this week is going. Thursday was my slow day. This article right here from Time Magazine. We talked about it before here on the show. This is crucial. The new report finds that 45 states are failing to teach students about the period that shaped race relations after the Civil War. This is dealing with Reconstruction. This article is from January 2022. Okay, from January 2022. 45 states out of 50 are failing to teach students about Reconstruction. And when you read this article, this is from January 12, 2022. One of the things they talk about in here is they connect the political violence during Reconstruction targeting African Americans and white Republicans, but especially African Americans, to keep us from voting. They connect that to the January 6th, 2021 insurrection. Okay, which would and that dealt with trying to overturn election results, especially nullify votes from African Americans. So all this history is connected. Okay, so read that one. All right, so look, we have to get out of here. So be sure to register for the online courses that I teach. How you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up on the broadcast. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a heart. Give us a like. How you all like this type of information? You can register for the online classes. We posted the link here. If you've taken any of my classes before, email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com or TheAHNshow@gmail.com. You can email me there as well. And you'll get a 50% discount also. And then also, if you like this type of information, you want to support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show, paypal.me / the AHN Show. And we have the link there in the broadcast here as well. All right, well, look, we have to get out of here. I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. So you can watch on Facebook and YouTube, Roland Martin on Facebook and YouTube. You can download the Black Star Media app and watch there. Download the Black Star Media app to your iPhone, Android phone, to your devices, Roku devices. It's on 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm a panelist each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We have to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. And we'll see you in class.